This video is being sponsored by The Coldest Water, makers of highly insulated water bottles, such as this 21-ounce sports bottle, and they make bottles all the way up to 1 gallon in capacity. If you click on the first link in my description, you can enter a giveaway for The Coldest Water gear, or you can click on the second link to go shopping, and if you enter the code MAYOTTE, M-A-Y-O-T-T-E, you will get 10% off your order. As you know from the title of this video, today I'll be making block prints using the lino cut that we made in the last video. This is actually the second video that I've made in making block prints. The first one was one of my first videos, and I will leave the link to it in the description, except that was a woodcut. I've made a lot of block prints, but I've always carved them in wood rather than linoleum. So let's look at the materials that I'll be using to do this. So here are the tools that I'll be using today. I have the lino cut, of course, that we made in the last video, and some paper. Now, a whole video could be made, probably a whole book written just about paper to be used in block printing. Some artists used handmade paper, some of them make it themselves. A lot of it comes from Japan, some fine paper. It can get very expensive. This is Subi block printing paper, which is made especially for block printing. This is just a piece of glass. It's in this fancy frame that I made, but any piece of glass would do, and that is to roll out the ink on so that we can get an even coat when we put it on the linoleum or the wood or whatever we may be using. To do that, of course, we'll need ink. You can get different types of ink. This is a water-based ink. I like the water-based ink because you can clean it up easily. And you'll need something to spread that with. This is a brayer, which is a roller that's used to spread ink and to put it on the block. And once the ink is on the linoleum, you put a piece of paper over it, and you use something like this. There are different types. This happens to be a wooden baron that I made, and a baron is used to rub the paper once it's over the inked surface, so that the ink will stick to the paper better. You can use just the back of a spoon to do this. As I said, this is something that I turned on the lathe that I used to do that with. So next I'll get the paper ready and we can start the actual process of making a print. Now these are 9 by 12 sheets of paper here, and I'm only going to need about half a sheet for the size print that I'm going to make today. So I'm going to need to take some of this out and cut it down. Now traditionally, paper for block prints is torn, or it's cut using a bone knife, which is something that I do not have, but what I do have, let me get this folded first. What I do have is a wooden knife that I've made, and I use this as a letter opener, but it'll work fine for this. As I said, traditionally a bone knife is used. So I will tear off several sheets of this to use. Now, before I start the inking process, I want to set up a way to register the paper so it always falls the same way. So I could make 50 of these if I wanted to, and the paper would always line up. There are 100 ways to do this. The simplest way is probably the best, and that's what I'm going to do today. So I'm just going to take a piece of paper and just using my fingers line it up so it's centered on the block about where I want it. And then I'm going to take 2 pieces of scrap wood and put them as far out as the paper is. And where the paper needs to stop. So now I know that I can take a piece of paper and drop it in that spot, and it should be centered every time. So block printing ink comes in jars like this, or tubes like oil paint. Comes in a variety of colors, and as I mentioned, you can get it in water-based or oil-based. And either way, what you want to do is get some of it onto the glass and start rolling it out with your brayer. And you want to hear that sound. I don't know if you can hear that or not. Kind of like bacon cooking, something like that. And then try to roll it evenly onto the linoleum. Once I'm satisfied with that, let's make a test print. When I was finished, I cleaned everything, including the linoleum block, with warm water. That's the beauty of using water-based paint. So this is the last in the string of videos about making lino cuts. And what have I learned from this? Well, I learned that it is easier to cut linoleum than it is wood. The linoleum is softer and it has no grain, which is a big advantage. On the downside, I don't think I can get as fine a detail out of a piece of linoleum that I can from a piece of wood, although I am still new to this and I will be using linoleum some more in the future. I also think that it's easier to make a print from a woodcut than it is from a lino cut, although that may just be that I have more experience using wood than I do linoleum, because the differences are very subtle, and I'm sure that as I gain more experience with the linoleum, I'll get even better results. If you like my videos, then please like and subscribe, and as always, I thank you for watching.